shortly. Thank you all for dropping by. We'll be starting just shortly. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining on this lovely Saturday. Today we're going to be working on the same drawing that we were working on 2 weekends ago. It's starting to come along pretty nicely. I'm liking where it's going, but there's still a lot of detail choices to be made and a lot of little nuances to craft out. So let's get going on that. Let's get going. I'm going to have a little bit of coffee and we're going to start trucking along. Yeah, so as you can see last time, we kind of resolved some of the issues of where the arms were I knew that I wanted them all over the place. I knew I wanted to have these big, gnarly looking arms. But finding the right spot for them, not the easiest thing to make sure that everything works with everything. So, we've got that pretty much where I want it. It's a little reachy still, but we'll get better as we keep doing this sort of thing. For now, I think it looks pretty great. Hello, little friend. I've also been blessed with cats right now, so I am surrounded on all sides. See how much of this I can get going. Music playlist this morning is a travel playlist, so that's why we're getting quite a bit of that country twang in there. Just pulling up my stream manager real quick, just to make sure I don't miss any chat. There we go. All right. And we are ready to roll. All right, Tarnished. What to do first? What to do first? Let's figure out what thing that she's going to be wearing, because I think we're going to get some cool draping. For those of you who've been playing Elden Ring, the way that Margit the Fell Omen has sort of a cape that drapes around the many arms so you can hide, I think that's a nice element. So let's figure out how we're going to incorporate that in. I don't think we're going to need the old green layer anymore. That was our under layer. That's also a sketch. Make sure that you always gotta label those layers. If you don't name your layers, you come back to it the next day, it's gonna be just like it is for me right now, where I'm going, what the hell is that? Oh yeah. Okay. I'm gonna put another sketch layer down just to make sure I don't mess up what I've already done. Go ahead and void out what I did. There we go. So from here, start drawing some fabriques. I generally like this one quite a bit. Yeah, that works. A little chunkier than what we were using before, though, so let's keep with our hard pressure. This might be a little too country for me now that I'm hearing it. It's not quite as Elden as I was hoping for. Alright, we'll hop in. We'll do a little change. Oh, this looks more reliable. Ah, there we go. Go. Alright, what should our girl be wearing here? I think it's this arm that I'm not loving. right now, but it was part of my original pose. It's just a little jutted out. It's very straight. It's a locked out elbow. It doesn't have any of the bends that the other ones do. We might have to go back in and change that before the finish. Okay, so what are we gonna give her? It seems like everybody within Elden Ring likes to be a little more covered than what we're looking at right now. So let's have that go up, but it'll be a piece of fabric that kind of drapes down. Got a feeling there's just going to be a lot of hanging and drooping and draping involved with this one. Hello everyone, I am currently streaming Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube simultaneously. If you want to talk, I am checking out the Twitch chat. I cannot watch all three at the same time, but I do have the Twitch chat pulled up. If you want to check it out, it is NicoX0 on Twitch. Otherwise, you're just gonna have to enjoy the sounds of my voice as I doodle, and I hope that you are enjoying it and having a fun Saturday yourselves. If you want to draw along with, you're always welcome to. I'd love to see what you got going on Saturday. I just like this as an exercise to kind of calm down and do something just for fun on the weekend. A good start to the weekend. Let's see. We want a little bit of a hint of a cloak, but honestly, like, we don't want to cover too much of what we've already done. A little bit of fabric go a long way, help us out. You know, if we're not loving parts of it, you can always cover it. And it adds a little more drama. She's a little too pretty at the moment, too. I feel like everybody has something kind of showing the battles that they've been through and the harshness of their life within Elden Ring. Most of the girls that you come across are missing an eye or are deathbed companions, so you don't really see them standing. And yeah, a lot of the guys are pretty warped and messed up, too. So I think we need to give her some, a little bit harder of an edge, perhaps. We may have made her a little too pretty. She's like a spidery sort of lady, so let's give her like a cowl, is what I'm thinking. That to shape up? Do we want it to kind of go? And I think we'll have the elbows. Let's give them a little bit of sharpness to them. Kind of like the crystal people that you see in some of the mining areas. Because we're subterranean, so it would make sense if the earth is sort of pushing its way out. We want a little grotesque and scary, but we don't want to push away too far from the grace that she has. She's still gotta look cool and elegant to a degree, but also terrifying. Do some lesion crystals popping out here. Lesion crystals is a nice way of thinking of them. Don't think we need much on that leg just yet. Some more crystals sort of popping out over here. Try to keep it organic looking. That'll give us the opportunity to pull in some other tones into. I think it'd be cool to give it kind of an amethyst purple popping out there. Nice little geodes growing all over the place. Little in here. The nice thing with having these protrusions coming out is you get to sort of mesh a combination of armor and crustacean anatomy. You just get to kind of play with what you already know, which is why it's important to always use reference when you're drawing things for the first couple times, because you build up this mental library that you can keep going back to that only builds and makes you better with each successive drawing. So if you're not using reference, you're only hurting yourself. That was a hard lesson for me to learn. Okay, those crystal formations are starting to pop off, looking pretty good. Free art tip. The reason, if you look, I'm putting all the crystals behind the forearm. Over here, we have a little bit that we're popping up on this side of it, but right here, you really want to keep that dynamic line going straight back, and so you can actually accent it by putting these at the end of it so that it fires off almost like the feathers on an arrow. But now we're starting to get into the nitty-gritty, the stuff that makes it really interesting. But you can't get to this step unless you've done all the other hard work that we've put in before this. So try not to jump immediately into the beefy cheesy. Let's give her some ornamentation. I think she has a tiara, perhaps. Does the tiara make her look a little too Wonder Woman? give her that sort of crystals coming from the temple. Is it too ogre-y? I think that's okay. I think that works. I don't love that tiara the more that I'm looking at it. Let's see what we can do without that. I don't think she would wear a tiara. I don't think she's that concerned with her status. She knows what she is and where she stands. She doesn't need to tell anybody else. That being said, who doesn't like a little jewelry? Let's do... There we go. I'm drawing in some of these knuckles just so I can kind of get a feel for where my shading's gonna go in the final, because right now this is sort of the last under sketch that we're doing. What we'll be moving on to after this is we'll be moving on to final lines and coloring. Haven't actually done like a finished illustration on this scale in quite a while, so it's a nice journey. It's a nice return to form. Did this sort of thing a lot when I was in school and just out of school, but as a graphic designer, there's not as much of an ask for illustration. Every once in a blue moon, they'll have me do something like fun and illustrative, but mostly it's packaging and labels, so not quite the kind of creative that I'd prefer. Few more little crystals popping out here and there. The music today is cracking me up. I do not really check the music before I go in, and it's a good time. I'm having a good time with the choices. I think we can give her kind of a like a dual spike thing coming up here. Kind of reminds me of Todd McFarlane's Spawn, the way the cape kind of had a life of its own. I wonder if I can mimic that on the other side without it looking too designy. We'll see. We'll have to try rendering that out a little bit to get it where we want it. Also, the nice thing about the cape is by bulking it out like this, you don't know how many other arms are underneath it. So she could be a lot larger than what we're seeing. We just don't know. And that'll make this whole area darker. Just doing some quick hatching to fill in the areas that are going to be dark. Some fabric might be nice to drape, because we're not really sure what to do with the belly area. It's a sort of a strange... How does one create clothes for someone who does not wear traditional clothes? Well, I suppose you would have to start from a place of fabrics. And kind of like a mummy, just to keep yourself covered in from like a warmth standpoint. You would want some bandages. I'm imagining like a gauzy sort of material, because it would have been really cheap and the easiest thing for her to find. Maybe the kindness of strangers. Maybe people come in to the cave to help. Maybe she acquires it from onlookers. I could see her being seen as a god by some people, so perhaps she has followers. I mean, in the Elden Ring world, they worship giant fingers, so not too far out of the realm of possibility. Alright, now the danger here is we don't want to end up looking too structural and give too much away. So I think, like, although right now we're going in with the line work, I think a lot of this is going to end up being in some pretty heavy shadow. Partially because we're not needing to deal with it, and partially because compositionally I think it's just sort of unnecessary and it's going to be a weird pinchy point that's going to fight the image a little bit. But we do get nice moments like that. I do like sort of a binding. And maybe just the cape come over this arm just a little bit to give it shape. I like that. There. Yeah, that gives the shape a little, the cape a little more shape. That's how you do. Nicely. Okay. We need a little more going on here. fabric across the arm. I think to keep, I know, to keep it on, because there's so many arms in here, would be challenge. You don't want it to just drape. So she has little sleeves that she can pull in that help. It's not a perfect system, but it works most of the time. You don't want to cut the shape up too much, so we'll probably end up keeping those elements kind of light. And the cape, I think could have the cape come out just a bit, but I really, yeah, we'll have it swoop out a little, but I still want to maintain her hair as the main source of light for that. So we might be at odds a little there. I like the idea of having it like that because it gives her a little extra volume, but it also reduces the vertical element, which is pretty important. Pretty important for this composition. She has to look tall and imposing. I think we'll cover up a little bit more. Not entirely, but you know, a little bit more modesty. I'm feeling that. She's looking a little more finish. Right. I think we might be about ready to start throwing some final composition elements in there. I think there's a lot more left to be added to the scene itself, but I think it might be about time to start getting our final line work nailed down. We have our tone pretty much established. We have the bare bones where we want them. And some of this is going to be corrected within the coloring phase. And let's be real, we're excited about her. We're not as excited about the tarnished. Okay, so now that I have done all of that, I'm going to reduce it to a group so that I can reduce its opacity. We'll call that the underlayer. We don't compress it, we keep it all there. Because we're going to go back and grab those colors when we need them. But for now, we're going to drop the opacity so that it doesn't interfere quite as much. Start an attempt at the line work to make us feel less. Yeah, you know what? We'll do a nice warm tone there, just to start it off. What I love about this is I can change it at any point. I don't have to stick to the first color that I wanted to sketch with. I can still use the animation principle of coloring your line work to give a little more depth to your drawing. Alright, let's pull back. Appreciate what we've done so far. And start working on what we want that final to look like. I don't think we're going to start with the face, because as we figure it out, it's going to be kind of frustrating to do it on the hardest part. So let's do it on parts that are fun, but a little less stakes. And is this what we want that line to look like? Or do we want some grit? Let's, you know, I think I want it smooth. It's either that. I like the charcoal pencil too, but I think it might be a little too gritty for what I'm doing right now. Let's see. I like it for my sketch. I don't know if I'll love it for my illustration. We'll check. $25 is a little thin for how I normally work. But I like the little details you can get in, and I like a little bit of the thick and thin. The nice thing about the toothy brush like this one, the charcoals and the graphite pencil mimicking ones, they feel a little... it's okay to have less polish. You don't want everything to look like it was manufactured by an AI. And that's how I feel like a lot of the clip art of the day ends up looking. It's just like that hyper smooth, really perfect lines. Sometimes that works okay, but it's just not really my style. I feel like it works better for more geometric characters. Whereas this, I just feel like it's better suited to have a little bit of grime, a little bit of grit. We'll see if I continue to feel that way, but that's why we made the choice we did this morning. We're just cleaning up the old drawing at this point. Trying to get it to a spot where when we start doing color, it's a lot easier and we've already made most of the choices that we're gonna make. And then it's just gravy, using airbrush and playing with color however we want to do it. Requires quite a bit of concentration. But this, I would argue, is the fun part. When you can look back at it and be like, yeah, it is what I wanted it to look like. It actually is becoming something. Although I guess really every stage has its moments like that. Sometimes you're like, oh, I got it, and then 5 minutes later you're looking at it like, oh, I don't got it, I got it, oh. Not too far off from Elden Ring in that respect. A lot of back and forth and up and down, like, oh, I know what I'm doing, I got it, I know what I had no idea what I was doing, what was I thinking? Teaches a little patience, teaches some humility. That piece sort of goes around. Contrary to popular belief, you don't have to connect every line that you have as long as there's a reason for you not connecting it. Like here, we're not going to draw it right up against the edge because there's going to be shading that comes in there and we don't need to create the potential of tangents. Do a little bit of geometry in there just to give us something to play off of when we're coloring. I kind of like putting these right next to that bit there because then it gives it something to kind of hold on to and hang off of. We're not gonna hatch these so that we don't paint ourselves into a corner. We can always hatch it with color if we want. Sometimes you gotta cut back in on your line work when it's digital to get the line you want. Let's really contort that hand a little bit. There we go. I like that a lot more than what we were doing before with it. Just a little more personality to the grip. Kind of need a bone situation right here. Just a little line there to hint at the forearm. Maybe the thumb can be a little longer. There we go. Yeah, that does make more sense that way. Good call. Just taste further. For those of you first coming to the channel, welcome. Just doing a little Saturday morning sketching. Thanks for joining us. Been working on a Grafted Maiden a la Elden Ring for the past couple weekends. Starting to come along pretty nicely, pretty happy with where we're going. Just happy to be here on a Saturday with you folks. Not sure how much longer the stream will be going this morning. Typically try to cap it at an hour to an hour and a half. But I might work a little bit later with this one. I'd like to get the line work closer to a finish. So that next week maybe we can just focus on color. Perhaps. You remember, when you're learning how to draw, just like when you're learning how to do most things, you're gonna hit walls periodically where it feels like you're not making any progress. But you do. You are making progress whether you're aware of it or not. For instance, all of a sudden I can kind of draw hands. It took me redrawing hands for quite a while before I was able to do it. But I'm not panicking about them the way I once sort of feared drawing hands. It's still not my favorite thing to do, but I can confidently know that I can at least express what I want to express with them. Little by little, we can get there if we keep taking steps towards it. little longer on that last digit. There we go. Yeah, as I work through the under sketch, you start to see the inadequacies of the under sketch of like, oh, okay, that was more gestural, and I didn't quite figure out where that piece was gonna go yet, or that hand does not necessarily fit the style of the other hands that we're seeing in here. That's why we do multiple drawings. We have the initial sketch, we have the under sketch. Every once in a while you get lucky and you can skip a step. But the steps are there for a reason, and it's important to not forget them. Yeah, see, normally if I was drawing, say, an ideal form, you would draw like a forearm or a calf muscle. You kind of want it to just sort of smoothly transition, a nice smooth shape. But here, I want it to look a little more decrepit, a little older. So I want you to be able to, I want it to look as though there's no fat content. And you're just looking at like bone and muscle. So you get this kind of hump shape in here where it just goes straight from like we got sinew and now we got a muscle in here. So you can get a little lumpy. You can start adding in weird folds and stuff, but you do want to make sure that you're doing it with the anatomy in mind. If you go in and do it willy-nilly, it'll look like you went in and did it willy-nilly. Sometimes you get away with it. There's a very specific Marvel artist who did a lot of work for Captain America. His name escapes me at the moment. But his anatomy is so busted. I mean, there's entire Reddit chains about how shit the anatomy is. It's bad too. Like anyone who's not an artist can take a look at it and go, that's not the way a human body's supposed to look. Just like ridiculously barrel-chested men, women with anatomy that's just like broken to try to show you both the front and the back at the same time. It's just kind of strange looking. Hello, Goat65, welcome. Just working on a Grafted Maiden sketch that we've been doing for the past couple weekends. It's a nice opportunity to practice some anatomy and do a fun sketch on a fun subject. I was never much of an Elden or much of a Souls games person before. They were a little harder than my type of gaming usually allows for. But it's really fun. I really like the story. I'm kind of gaining a new appreciation for that genre. It's not necessarily from Elden Ring, but it's inspired from Elden Ring. It's kind of the characters within. So like when you play the game, you run into characters that do have sort of arms grafted on them in this way, more like a spider. It's a medieval setting, so you have sort of knights and very gothic themes of just very dark rooms, big open ceilings. So, inspired from, but not directly related to. I kind of just needed to give myself a fun drawing prompt. Because just sitting down and drawing, you don't always get something that you feel like sharing with people, so you have to kind of think about, oh, what do I want to draw? What would be a fun thing to show other people while I draw? I always like doing monsters. Are you a gamer, an illustrator, or Just here looking for a little entertainment today. I've always been someone who likes to draw. I used to get in trouble for it all the time when I was in school. My teachers did not like that I would draw on the margins of my tests and things like that. But I was just bored. I was deadly bored back then. Ah, Warframe. I've been meaning to give it a shot. I haven't had a chance just yet to do it, but I do like the look of it. I've heard a lot of good things. The gaming's a blast. I do love when I have the time to actually get out and play, but it's hard to give yourself time as well. So many things to do. But yeah, back in the day, like I was much more of a platformer person. I like big in the Mario crowd, big in like Metroidvania style games. RPGs like this one, they're usually a little too much for me. They're just a little too involved, and they're crazy hard. So just when I have a little bit of time to spare, spending that time just being angry and getting killed over and over and over and over and over again, not as appealing. Cuphead was kind of the same way. I don't mind a little bit of grind. I can do some grinding. As long as there's some reward for it and it's not just showing up to be killed over and over and over. As long as you get some success out of it. It's like, yeah, I can get into this. And yeah, I mean, honestly, drawing and gaming both involve quite a bit of grinding to get better at. So if you're wanting to put in the grind, you can do it for sure. The way I see it, my mom used to be a kindergarten teacher. And every once in a while, I would come in and help with stuff. But when I would see the kids' drawings, most of them look pretty much the same. Like there, you can still see like there is some argument for talent and just natural ability, but I would say the majority of the kids you see in there, it all looks the same. And it really is just kind of what you want to spend time with uh, dictates what you get better at. Um, okay, yeah, you like the hard grinding RPGs like Skyrim and that sort of thing. I like it. It's just they eat so much time. I tried to get into Fallout for the same reason. I loved the idea of like the big expansive world that they had going on. Uh, but I would start the game, I would look out the window and the sun would go down because it would just my entire day would vanish. And I would look at what I did in the game and I was like, I barely like I did the character creation and then I walked around for 3 hours and just got killed the whole time. It's a little bit better with Elden Ring, I will say. I feel like I also have like friends that I'm reaching out to and being like, yo man, what is this mechanic? What is happening here? But I do I don't know, it's just it's a good gaming's always been a good way to kind of like at the end of the day just kind of shut everything down. It also helps, I feel like, because when you're working, a lot of times like you don't necessarily get a win. Like maybe you get to go home, but you don't feel like it was like, oh yeah, I killed it today. But with gaming, like it gives you a nice simple situation where it's like, here's a problem I can solve. Here's something that I get to be a hero in, and I know how to solve for these problems, and I think I can do it. That's what I like about them. Nice, fun puzzle to solve that I can probably solve that night. Not always, but sometimes. Happy Saturday, Moonster. Nice to see ya. Just been working on this sketch for a couple weekends, little by little, and now we're getting to the point where we're ready to do some of the final inking, and then we'll start in on the final color a little bit later. Not sure if we'll get to color today in this session, because technically we're already over the time that I usually spend in. But I'm putting in a little bit extra time because I'm enjoying how this one's coming out. And it's just nice to get it closer to finish. So many of my drawings remain as sketches, and then I'll go into the computer and have to do a bunch of digital stuff to get it. Most of my sketches are layouts these days, I guess, rather than characters, so it's just more fun to do it this way. A little more fulfilling at the moment. Moonstar, I saw a lot of pictures from your trip, and it looked like an absolute blast. Are you back in the States now? I'm doing pretty good myself. You know, we're just trying to calm down after a fairly busy week. So we're doing a little bit of this, and then I'm not sure what I'll do later today. Got a couple things I gotta do. Ugh, I gotta do taxes too. Gotta get that in. 10 days. 10 days. That is exciting. Well, it'll be nice to see. It seems like the way things are currently going, there might be an opportunity for a somewhat standard summer, so it'd be nice to see people again. I do miss that. As much as I love my solitude, I am getting the tiniest bit stir crazy after about 2 years from seeing most of my friends. Ah, subletting. Hell yeah. Yeah, you. I mean, I wish there was a place. Are you on the Instagram, Mare? Are you sharing all those pictures around? Because yeah, it was a fantastic looking trip. Very wildlife focused. Super cool looking. Maybe that's what I'll do after I do this. Maybe I'll do something a little more wild focused. You can share with me a couple of your favorite pictures from the safari sort of thing that you were doing, and I can find a way of incorporating them into a drawing. That'd be fun. Fun little exercise. Yeah, I hear you, Goat. I am ready for a vacay myself. I am pretty tired with the usual work. And that's kind of what this is for me. It's a mini vacation. It's not leaving, and it's still technically working, but it's just for fun, and it's just a little more freedom. Kind of let the mind go. Kind of reminds me of my when my dad, when I was little, and he still does all the time. My dad is big on the lottery. He likes buying the lotto ticket. And I don't necessarily, like, it ain't my thing. It's not something that I'm going to be doing. I decided when I was little that I wasn't going to do it. But I understand why he does it. Like, it's buying himself the dream for a minute. It's buying, like, the right to the dream. And he can just think about what it can be for a little while. Because we used to do that when we were younger. for me, I try to put that energy into the drawing. Because this is where I get to dream and I get to kind of build what I want, how I want. It's not a lot of places where you get to make the rules, but your canvas, you get a little bit of control with this. Yeah, my dad, he still buys them. He's been in retirement for a little while, and my mom can't stand it. Tells him not to buy them all the time, but I get it. I mean, when you don't see other options of the way out of the financial spot you're in, it's like, it's permission to dream for a minute. You get a chance to sit back and go, man, what if? I feel like keeping that hope alive is important. You gotta dream. If you don't dream, you'll only ever do the things in front of you. You gotta try to imagine what could be instead of just what is. Y'all gonna be playing games a little bit later? Mare, I saw that you were playing right now. What game are you setting up? I'll probably do some Elden Ring a little bit later. Haven't finished it yet. If I can actually get to a spot where I finish it, I will be impressed. I think I might be a week or two out from that too. Yeah, I liked little scratchies are fun. Sometimes for Christmas we'll do those, where those will end up being like stocking stuffers. And they're fun. I mean, it's the same kind of thing where it's like you never know if it's actually gonna be anything, but it's kind of fun just to have a little thing to scratch and a little something to do. We might need to rework the profile just a bit. I think, yeah, you know, I think it works okay. Next week, I have to help at my job. They need a mural painted using spray paint, which is not quite as forgiving a medium as Photoshop. A little nervous about it, but I think it'll be okay in the long run. That's what I'm worried about a little bit on this Saturday morning. Is how will I work in that medium, which I don't really do much in. I think it'll all be fine. It'll go over smooth, but, you know. Anytime you're doing something relatively new for the first time in front of a handful of people, it always gets the adrenaline running a little bit. Alright, we're gonna go in just a little bit tighter for these details. think we'll do just a slight pinch up here for worry. A little bit darker at the edge for that hint of makeup. Gives you that look of eyelashes. Nice little under spot here. A little bit of ear love, nothing too wild and ornate. Right, and that's kind of where the cloak meets the neck. Creeping around up here. Yeah, we'll have to go in and clean a little bit of this up, but honestly I like the softness of the rough brush. I have a clasp right there. I think we want that getting stuck by that piece. So go up and around a bit. Yeah, we'll have to clean that up a bit. But that's okay. Kind of like it hitting right here. It's gonna gather really sharply right there. Have some sort of pieces climbing up. And that's what's gonna give us this big evil sort of collar cowl thing. There, that's more the shape I think I want. It's a little too soft. We want to give those horns more like that. I am liking where that's going. Sure to save again, because every time it lags, my heart stops a little bit. Okay, let's see how we're looking. If I take off the underlayer. Okay, we're looking pretty solid. It's a lot cleaner. I like that. Might still need... I mean, there's going to be some touchies to do, but Yeah, it's fine. Oh, and Goat65, where are you from? Where are you at right now? Moonster and I are Chicago people. She's a friend from trapeze class. Oh, the Netherlands, really? Wow. What time is it in the Netherlands right now? Here in Chicago, it is almost noon. I've never been to the Netherlands. We've been talking about getting some kind of vacation going soon. 7 o'clock, wow. We've done some international travel, but it's always wild going, like, experiencing dramatic time zone changes. I think the biggest one that I've encountered was when we went to Asia. We spent a little bit of time in Taiwan and a little bit of time in Japan. And it was great, but the first couple days were very, very challenging because you're just impossibly tired. And all you want to do is go out and do things. And your body is telling you, no, we don't need to do things. We need to stay inside. We need to rest. Japan was probably one of my favorite trips. And I mean, of course, it's going to depend on what your interests are. But I really enjoyed being in Japan. We spent the first night in Narita, which is right next to their airport. Uh, Liked it, really enjoyed the atmosphere there. It's a little touristy. It's very shoppy in Narita. And then from there you can go to Tokyo or other areas. But Tokyo itself is very impressive. It did not disappoint. It was easily the biggest city I've ever been in. Stacked on itself. Everybody we ran into was super helpful with helping us get around. Most of the signage they had both in Japanese and in English, so it was easier to navigate. Whereas when we were in Taipei, it's a little bit more isolated, so there's not quite as much translation. So it was a little bit harder to get around when we were in Taipei. But still, I mean, both places I enjoyed immensely. Tokyo was especially fun just because when I was younger, I watched a decent amount of anime, and most of those animes were set in Tokyo, so I was just surprised at how right they got it. It wasn't just like an idealized version of Tokyo. All the lights, all the crazy signage everywhere, stuff just stacked on stacked on stacked. It was exactly like that. So it was really fun. I really liked it. I would recommend it to anybody who wants to go. Very welcoming, uh, and great food. If you like sushi, if you like fried food, you can get tonkotsu, you can get the ramen is amazing. There's some stuff that I'm not super into that are cultural differences, but that's fine. You'll have that everywhere. Like natto. Natto is not for me. It's like there's soybean sprouts that have fermented, so it has like a sticky kind of quality to it. It's it's a little too much texture for me, and the fermentation of it just to my palate it tastes like I'm not supposed to eat it. I know it's not the case, and it probably has great gut bacteria and all kinds of stuff for you. It's a hard sell for someone with a Western palate. But a lot of the other stuff is delicious. And vending machines everywhere that sell you anything from just coffee to full meals. Uh, it's also I really liked the juxtaposition that they did really well of an intensely urban area with areas of rest for your eye. Like you have really, really busy cityscape, and then you would have a temple space next to it. And it wasn't just that the temple was kind of squeezed in, it still sort of had presence. It had a feeling when you walked into the area so that you were still able to be like, ah, okay, it's a reprieve. It's like a moment to relax from the hustle and bustle. And it was really nice. America doesn't have a lot of places like that. New York has Central Park, which does it to some degree, but I mean, it was modeled after the Japanese model. So, without trying to do it, America just doesn't have a lot of spaces like that. We're mostly designed for cars, which makes it challenging sometimes to find fun places to walk that are within walkable distance and safe to walk. Our parks are okay. They're just not as elaborate or well thought out, I guess, would be the way of saying it. Yeah, the food is fantastic. The food will not let you down, for sure. Scallion pancakes, if you find yourself in Asia. Scallion pancakes are very good. Um, just really savory, tasty bits. I'm a big fan in oh, what's it? Now that it's a little early for me. I'm still forgetting some of the names. Um, Takoyaki. If you've ever had takoyaki, it's like a deep fried ball that has octopus in it, but it also has like a little bit of mayonnaise and fish flakes and stuff sprinkled over the top. It is divine, and I feel like I can only find it in cities. Some stuff is working its way into our more rural areas, which is where I was originally from. An area called Effingham, Illinois. Uh, they have some variety that they're getting little by little, but that's kind of a specific thing for Japan. And I love it. I can't wait to have it again. Yeah, it's you can tell it's about noon, because yeah, I'm also pretty hungry. All I've had for breakfast was my hard-boiled eggs and the coffee that I'm drinking right now. Couple more geodes coming off here. A little more texture there. It's important to make it sure that you violate the silhouette a little bit, but also carry what's happening on the silhouette down so that it looks a little bit more attached. If you just do it on the silhouette constantly and nothing in here, it starts to look a little weird. a little bit of like what's actually happening behind it. Some nice little spots jutting out here. It took me a little while to get used to coffee when I was younger. I used to drink it with a lot of sugar and a lot of cream. But then I was a barista for a few years, and you get used to a black coffee doing that. But I totally understand. It's a bitter beverage, and a lot of people will throw so much into it, like at Starbucks, the frappuccinos and the lattes. There's so much sugar. It's like you don't actually like coffee. You like dessert, and you like to be awake, and that's what this is. So are you more of a tea person then? Do you have a warm beverage of choice? I feel like most people I know, if they don't like coffee, they like tea, or if they don't like either of those, then they like hot chocolate. I like hot chocolate, but really I think I only like hot chocolate on a real cold day. I don't find myself reaching for it ever in the summer. It's definitely just a winter thing for me. Some people drink it for camping. I think mostly just because it's an easy thing to pack while camping. We have little powders that you can just add to water over the campfire. Tea has a lot more sort of nuance to the flavor. I feel like it's a much lighter flavor depending on the kind of tea. Like we do some herbal teas, like chamomile. We have, oh, what do we have right now? I think we have a ginger tea and like a standard like green matcha. That's pretty nice. But yeah, coffee is a very intense flavor. I feel like it's harder to go from coffee to tea because it's so bold with the flavor. It kind of knocks everything else out of whack. Which would be another reason to not drink it all that much. It's good with breakfast food, but like drinking coffee with dinner or lunch, it kind of wrecks the flavor of other stuff. I would agree with that. I wish that I wasn't quite as caffeine dependent as I am. I feel like I have a bit of a dependency from years of working as a barista and being a graphic person, always needing to stay up just a little bit later and put in just a little bit more time on something. Something to work towards, being less caffeine dependent, for sure. Because you want to make choices because you like it, not because you feel like your body needs it or it doesn't function. That's not fun. That doesn't feel like you're in control. Liking where we are going. I don't know that we're going to get much further currently. Alright, let's have another peek at it without the underlayer. Yep, silhouette's still looking pretty good, looking pretty grimy. consistency is working pretty nice with the jewel placement. I think we could do a little bit more on this shoulder probably. Need to figure out where this silhouette kind of goes and cuts. Let's do that before we finish for the day. Trying to make a practice of doing this a little more regularly instead of just one day a week. Kind of push me to make my portfolio a little more updated, a little nicer looking. So yeah, and give people more of a chance to tune in if you want to see me doing more stuff. It depends on the caffeine. I feel like it affects people in different ways. Um, Coffee and tea feels like a pretty quick way to get caffeine. At least it affects me more when I do coffee or tea. If I drink like a soda or something, that never affects me. I feel like although it has caffeine in it, it never, like, it doesn't keep me up. It just makes me feel kind of sleepy and sluggish from all the sugar, I feel like. Because I used to, I mean, when I was a kid, I would drink as much soda as I was allowed to, and more if I could get away with it. But yeah, I mean, sometimes the amount of soda that I was drinking was absolutely ridiculous. For like sleepovers, I can remember getting like a 12-pack of Coke and being able to finish that 12-pack of Coke. And now the idea of drinking more than like 2 sodas in a day is just like, ugh, I can't believe that. Oh yeah, I mean, the saying that you're the kind of person that will start the sketch and never finish, bringing it all the way to finish is a lot harder than people make it out to be. Depending on what you're going to do. Because if you... Like for me, when I was learning how to play guitar when I was in high school, I didn't... If I had set my sights on trying to play like a Led Zeppelin song or something like that, I would have just been frustrated the whole time, and I don't think I would have gotten very far, and I don't think I would have actually learned how to play the guitar. But lucky for me, the music that I was interested in back then was punk rock. It was really popular, like some bubblegum pop and stuff like that. It was just like Weezer, Blink-182, all these punk pop-ish bands were coming out at the same time that I was interested in learning how to play guitar, and what they were playing was really easy. So I actually lucked out and learned how to play from people that were just barely able to play their own instruments. But it worked out great because it just made it easier and I had more successes. That's how I feel like drawing is too. Like if you set out trying to do Michelangelo or Caravaggio or something like that, just don't be discouraged if it doesn't look that way at first. Like my drawing style is a little more cartoony than it is realistic, and it's finding your sweet spot. It's finding what you do well and what you like taking all the way to finish before doing it, because also like not every sketch needs to be finished. When I was in illustration classes in school, my the comic teacher always liked to say the most important thing about your drawing is that you tell the story that you're trying to tell. And what a comic artist does is tries to tell the story in as few lines as possible, because the rest of it is just kind of showing off. Like, yeah, you can be a fantastic renderer, you can do something photorealistic, but does it help to tell the story? In some cases it does. If it's something like Lord of the Rings, part of the story is how massive and beautiful and awe-inspiring it is. So in that case, yeah, it is pretty important to fully render out the image and have it look a certain way. It has to inspire awe. But if you are, say, drawing a character and they're supposed to be reacting to something, the most important part is the reaction. So if you just do like the wide, silly eyes and all those little parts that you're used to with cartoons, like sometimes that's enough. It really just it's like Einstein says, very relative. Everything's relative. Whether something is good or bad very much depends on the uh, the problem it's trying to solve, I feel like. And being able to give yourself a break too, because I mean, we all start off from pretty much the same spot of like, I cannot do this. It's just about if you want to go, yeah, I don't like it now, but I think I can make it better. If you can hold on to that mindset, and I'm not saying it's easy because I do not always hold on to it either. But if you hold on to the mindset of, yeah, it doesn't look great now, but I can make it better, that's when you grow. That's how you'll get better. I'm a firm believer that anyone can draw if they want to, but it does take time, and not everyone has that time, and it's not a priority for everyone, and that's okay too. But it should be a fun thing. If you're not doing it for your job, it should bring you some element of joy. So if you're doing it and you're just hitting a wall over and over again repeatedly and you're just not having fun with it, then maybe it's not for you. But I look at it, I try to look at it in the same way that I look at games, where you put in a little bit of time, then you're gonna get something out of it. It's not always going to be exactly what you wanted, and it's not always going to be perfect. But as long as the goal is learning and the goal isn't perfection, I think that you're setting yourself up to do all right and have a good time with it. Not to be too philosophical on a Saturday. It's a little crazy long, but I am enjoying that expression on it. I think we'll keep it. Doesn't quite match, but the expression was nice. I would recommend keeping it as a hobby for quite a while. I made the mistake early on of everything that I did, I tried to turn into a job because everyone had always told me, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. I don't really believe that. I think that everything is work. Um, and it can't, you can get joy out of it or you might not get joy out of it. You can find fulfillment in something that's not necessarily something that you are passionate about. Because the problem with turning every hobby into a job is then at the end of the job, it's harder to find the thing that you do at the end of the day to relax. Because if I spend my day drawing, I don't want to come home and draw more. Hobbies are important. In America, we are definitely not great at maintaining that distance between hobby and work. But I'm trying to be better about keeping better work-life balance. It feels like a struggle and a hill to climb, but I'm working on it. I'm trying to keep it going. Well, I think that this might be where I leave it for today. I am getting pretty hungry for lunch, and the cats are beginning to riot as they too are hungry for lunch. So we're gonna have one last peek at how that sketch is looking right after here, and then I think we're gonna call it for Thursday. Unless I feel particularly inspired and feel like going back in on it later tonight, which I might. No promises. Alright, so back it on up. Oh yes, they're so unappreciated. Poor guys. I've got one orange boy and one gray boy, and they are so pampered. Yes, I would agree with the hobby situation. You do start to dislike certain aspects of it, and then it just, you end up in this weird place of like, I love this thing and this is who I am, but now I don't know if I like it anymore. Who am I? What am I doing? And it's like, it's not a fun place to go. I would not recommend. Alright, so our line work is looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the direction that we're going. I think I've probably still got another, I would say roughly another 12 hours or so before this is a finished piece. And some of that's going to be outlining. Once the outlining's done, the coloring isn't too challenging, but we'll be doing a lot of little tweaks and kind of learning as we go. And then we have all this area that just needs to be kind of fleshed out still. We know we're going to have candles lighting everything. But one of the things that Elden Ring does so much is just kind of clutter everywhere. So we're going to have probably some timepieces, we'll have a bunch of daggers and things kind of lying around, and that's going to be reflective surfaces, so there'll be some shine from the candles on that. So we still have quite a bit left to do once we're finished with this. But yeah, I think we're going to leave it off here. Thanks for joining. It was nice making some new friends. Nice to meet you, Goat65. And yeah, I'll see you next time. I'm on every Saturday morning, usually around 10:30 here, and sporadically throughout the rest of the week when I have the extra energy for it. So thanks for joining. Nice to see you, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye, y'all.